So there's a lot of different factors in the ecosystem, right? And if you don't mind, I would take it up in each bit because otherwise it won't make sense. You cannot generalize it all, but there's the demand side and the supply side. And when you talk about supply side, you talk about actually the women and the candidates. And when you're talking about the demand side, you're talking about the employers, the job givers, so to speak. So it has a different perspective on either side on where the challenges lie. And based on the ground reality and the field visits that I've done and talked to some of these girls in the schools and the programs that we run and also the data that exists today. Let me just, if you don't mind, just take a few minutes to talk through what some of these are that a lot of people might be familiar with, but it doesn't change the reality. And I think sometimes people don't really understand the extent of how these are inhibiting factors for the women. So, for example, social norms that exist today really prevent women from accessing opportunities in education and hence all this developing the required skills. So a data point is 44% women drop out before class 10 and 22 before class 2. And some of the reasons are, for them, it's lack of employment opportunities. It could be financial reasons. It could be cultural, social cultural norms, poor working conditions. Sometimes it's ease of access or how difficult it is for them to actually reach the schools or be able to commute and make it to the training centers. So 21 million women actually dropped out of the workforce in the last 5 years. I know COVID had a really large part to play in this, but less than quarter of the people entering the workforce are women. That's not a really good number. And actually, India, given our population, India is actually, faring poorly in compared to all of the other countries or even in its own counterparts. So India is among the 15 poorest performing countries in terms of gender parity. So it's 23% of the workforce is women only, which is a very small percentage for us.
Right.
And even where there is demand or where there are the jobs, it's not necessary that these women have access or visibility of these jobs. And then if it requires them to be mobile or migrate, that's a hugely limiting factor, as you know, in our country. That's not an easy decision or accessible for them to make that move from a small village into a big city. So where I feel, and this is, talking about the supply side, right? And if we talk about there's also demand side, which I'll come to in a second, the factors there, but the societal restrictions, burden on household chores, the children care, child care, the farming, for example, they still have to come home and do a lot of this. So when they are working, they always ask me, like, how are you making it easier for me in terms of flexibility? Because I still have demands at home to come back. And if the pay is very low, what happens is typically a lot of these women are told, but you're not bringing anything home. A lot of it is either going in commuting or in them living somewhere else. And what actually comes to pocket, in terms of faring for their month-to-month expenses, their family say there's no need, just sit at home, right? So what can we do or what are we doing to kind of work on some of these known issues is, the training programs that we run and the implementation partners that we work with, we've kind of asked them to focus on at least these three of many areas. So these are the top three. One is onboarding of family members early on and get their community buy-in is really important, because when you actually have someone from within the community who has either been part of our program or who we've mobilized, there's a lot of trust factor as well. Correct. And then you ensure that the burden of the household responsibility is not entirely on this woman. There is, some buy-in from them to say that she's going to go to work. So there's some shared responsibility. They're cognizant of the issues. Then the sensitization of community members, again, awareness in the community, addressing the community's negative perception of working women, where they're going, what they're actually doing. And then ease of access. I think infrastructure is a big issue in our country. And I find that, where the training center and subsequent job facilities are easily accessible to them, in that segment of society, in a realm of a certain distance, then it becomes a lot easier to lure them into these jobs. So this is kind of addressing the supply side. You actually want me to touch upon the demand side as well briefly, because
please.
So that's actually the opposite factor. So when you talk to employers and including ourselves, we're saying, we need to walk the talk ourselves. So the Mahindra Group itself is being very cognizant in terms of how we will hire and create opportunities for this demographic of women in the workforce. And as you know, we are a very male-dominated industry. It's auto and manufacturing and machinery, and it's not an easy segment to actually target these women, because they have very fixed perceptions of if they are going to go in the job force, what that means. And they are, it's typically the BPO jobs or They even shy away from sales and retail because they're not so comfortable dealing with clients. So hospitality is a big sector. BPO IT is a very desired job. But when you talk to some of these girls, they have aspirations and they're very smart. And you just have to make them a little bit more aware of what the job means, because sometimes a word or a description is very misleading and they feel either intimidated or they feel they're not qualified and they're not ready for it. So one of the things that we are focusing on is how you map the career aspirations with the program participants early on and demonstrate, where there's a match between, or either a mismatch between the aspirations and what kinds of jobs will be available to them at a starting level, and through the skilling programs, what we are bringing to them. And obviously, then we need to make the employers aware as well that there is limited gender intentionality across these mobilization and job matching, which is a truth across all employers. And we need to make sure that we are providing the right intelligence and the right skills of these jobs, and being positioned more sensitively where they're not male-dominated jobs. So if you consider some of the trends and how you set realistic targets and pathways to some of these realities, gig jobs or contract workers, work from home, some sort of remote jobs that can scale, where even if you give them part-time opportunities, they're more conducive to kind of attracting women, facilitate gender-sensitive hiring, we call it. So, mobilize employers who are motivated to empower women, ensure that the recruitment process is gender-sensitive, publish standard JDs that are not so, written in a way that they're not kind of accounting for some of the sensitivities that's required in the language. And then, of course, the most important is the working conditions and infrastructure. Clean bathrooms, safe environment, sometimes convenience, night shift, anti-harassment structure policy, maybe having even female supervisors to show sensitivity, but also that you have career progression, not just male managers on the floor. So we are kind of developing toolkits and working with some of our other partners who have developed these toolkits to see how we can make this more palatable to both sides.